Hey everyone, my name is Andrew Von Boscher, and today I wanted to talk more about music production and the age old debate of quality versus quantity. And one of the things of many that I want to talk about today is how quantity will lead to quality. The more you make, the better you'll get. And so, the first thing I want to talk about basically is this story that I'm sure a lot of you have heard already before, and it's from this book called Art and Fear, and it is by David Bales and Ted Orland. And what it talks about is the ceramics class. The first day of class in the ceramics class, this professor splits the class into two groups. One is graded purely based on how much they make. And so it's like 50 pounds of pots is an A, 40 is a B, so on and so forth. And then the other half of the class is based on just one pot that's graded at the very end of the, period of the class. So, um, what ends up happening is in the story, come grading time, the section of the class that had created more pots and was just trying to create as much as possible to get the A, literally just making pots just over and over, um, ended up having better quality pots than the one part of the class that didn't have that opportunity. They only had to, make one pot, but they got to study about it all they wanted. But the thing is, all they had to doing was they kept theorizing about it and kept thinking about it instead of just doing it, because that's how the class was made. So the whole idea of that anecdote is basically just talking about how quantity leads to quality. So the more and more you make, the more and more you get better at it. Plain and simple. It's more or less just like any sort of like video game. What in any role playing game, any sort of strategy game, what you do is you grind. You grind for XP or anything like that, and then the more and more you do it, the more and more skills you get, the more and more HP, MP, whatever you get. So it's literally the same exact type of concept when it comes to making music. Constantly just making tracks, not even needing to release them. And that's kind of what I want to segue into now is basically how you can make tracks and you don't have to release them. I know that sounds so obvious, but when I first started doing this, I felt like if I was gonna spend time on making tracks and like my blood, sweat, and tears, like why wouldn't I release it? Why would I not, let show people what I've been working on so hard for? But what I'm starting to learn is, the more and more you make, the better idea it is to maybe just hold on to a few, and that way there's no pressure on yourself of having to release everything, and that way you can make more and more tracks. So if you're like, okay, I'm not going to release this track, then you can just go on making it without having to think about what you're going to do with it or anything, without like, oh, are people going to like this, should I do this, da 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 da. Just make it, just get it done, move on to the next one. It's going to be, it's going to be on your hard drive, you know as long as you back it up. So just really think about that. Really think about just like just churning out tracks, just track after track after track, pot after pot after pot, and see if your skills don't improve a lot faster instead of you just kind of thinking about what you're gonna do. Because I know I've done that a lot before. It's just like okay, especially in 2014, I came out with maybe like four official releases, like four tracks, and it was terrible because I just kept thinking about it instead of just doing it. But I came out with an album last year. This year, I have 13 tracks done. I haven't done anything with them because I'm just trying to build more and more tracks. But I can tell you right now that I'm not going to release probably three or four of them at least. But they're mine, and you can use them as secret weapons. You can use them as stems for different sets. You can make sample packs out of them. So don't think that you shouldn't make something just because you're not going to release it. And but just yeah, really think about that because it really is a weird hurdle to get over sometimes. And the one thing that I also wanted to talk about was, the grind. You have to embrace the grind. It's just kind of what it is. If you love what you do, then it's going to be where you're going to have to embrace the grind. And it's not always going to be fun, but you're still going to be able to just pile on tracks. Continue making tracks and be more forgiving of yourself of making mistakes. That way you can just continue making tracks and moving forward instead of beating yourself up for not trying to get that specific sound or whatever. But more things get done by doing them than thinking about them. And so, for example, I did a 7 songs in 7 days challenge earlier this year, and I streamed it all, and I have the videos up on playlist on my channel. So go check them out when you get a chance. I gave myself roughly about 2 hours to an hour and a half, all the way down to an hour to make one full track from start to finish. And it really forces you to do things, and just move on. Finish making an element of the track, move on. Start structuring it at a certain point and move on. And so I posted that on Reddit in a subreddit called We Are the Music Makers. And before it got shut down because it was posting my own music, I messed that up. That was completely my fault. But before I posted that, there was a couple people that were saying, quality is sometimes better than quantity. But then a lot of people were like, no, the only way to get better is by, producing quantity. So that way it'll lead to quality. And the first thing that came to mind was that anecdote from Art and Fear. So don't think that, you can't make quality when you're making quantity. So the last thing I wanted to talk to you about was Lil Wayne. And this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about today. Lil Wayne, love him or hate him, he's one of the biggest rap stars, or was one of the biggest rap stars in the game. And in 2008, when he came out with the Carter 3, he also just came out with a slew of mixtapes, singles, features. He was everywhere on all the tracks, everywhere. And there was a behind the music on him on VH1 back in the day, and it was talking about how he would, no matter where he was, would make a track every single day, or try to make a track every single day. And there's a lot of good gems that he has because of that. Of course, not every track is like amazing, but that also means that there's a lot of actually good tracks in that slew of all those releases. And it really did kind of stamp him as one of the greats of rapping because of that. So that's another thing just to think about. It's just like, it's one of those things where you can make a track every day, and if you want to release it, go ahead and release it and see what happens. It doesn't matter how, what people perceive as, as long as you're okay with what you're doing, go for it. There's no problem in doing it. So that's all I really wanted to talk to you about today, was how, quantity will lead to quality. So don't be afraid to make mistakes. Don't be afraid to just churn out tracks. And if you want to release them, go for it. Pull a Lil Wayne and just mixtape everywhere and see what happens. But other than that, thank you so much for watching. And if you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe. And go check out the 7 songs in 7 days challenge. It's a playlist in my YouTube channel. And I am planning on doing a new one soon. So be on the lookout for that on twitch.tv/abbosher. Other than that, we'll see you next time.